Hello everyone, Max here with Fiction Rant, bringing you part 4 of my series discussing the Star Trek vs. Star Wars debate. This part will discuss the defensive capabilities of the ships and soldiers in each universe. I'll reiterate that this is Star Trek Federation as of the Dominion War versus the Galactic Empire as of Return of the Jedi. As before, I'll start by discussing the ships in each universe, but first I'd like to mention that how effective they are at repelling attacks is extremely badly defined in both universes. In one scene, a ship will get hit a couple times and explode, and in another, a ship will shrug off huge amounts of punishment and survive, though usually this is more plot armor than shielding. For Star Trek, every ship is equipped with deflector shields of varying power levels, with larger ships typically being equipped with more powerful shielding. What those shields can stop, again, is extremely vague, but suffice to say that given sufficient force, they can be overwhelmed and fail. Importantly, as with most things the Federation utilizes, the shields are highly versatile and sectional. So, for example, the shields to the rear of a vessel can be weakened to fortify the shields to the front of the ship. They can also be extended in order to protect other vessels, though this seems to be at the cost of overall effectiveness. The deflector shield projectors can also be reconfigured to emit beams of various types, making them the go-to solution for much of Trek for any situation that might arise. Just reconfigure the deflector to emit MacGuffin particles so you'll be able to seal up that space-time transwarp rift in fluidic space. One important weakness of all shields in Star Trek is that they operate on a frequency system, and if a foe can figure out what that frequency happens to be, they can adjust their weaponry to bypass your shields entirely. The crew can remodulate their shields to counter this weakness, but I guess they forgot to do that in Star Trek Generations. The Borg in particular seem particularly adept at penetrating Federation shields, forcing the use of rotating shield frequencies to help keep them out. Why this isn't a common practice anyway against non-Borg foes, I don't know. All Federation ships are also armored to a degree as well, but again, how effective this armor is really inconsistent and badly defined. There are, however, multiple instances where hulls of ships are able to withstand extreme temperatures without melting. The most extreme example of this was in the Next Generation episode Descent Part 2, where the Enterprise was brought into the corona of a star, heating its hull to 12,000 degrees Kelvin prior to engaging metaphasic shielding that dropped the hull temperature to only 7,000 degrees. For perspective, the metal with the highest melting point that we currently know about, tungsten, has a melting point of about 3,653 degrees Kelvin, so the duranium hulls of Federation vessels are pretty amazingly resilient to high temperatures. In Star Wars, things are equally badly explained, but we do get some insight into how things work, at least beyond the fact that given enough punishment, any shield will fail, just like Star Trek shields. Just to be confusing, there's actually two kinds of shields that are both called deflector shields and ray shields pretty interchangeably. One general kind of shield will stop energy, but not matter. The other kind will stop matter, but not energy. This, again, is confusing since in the Star Wars universe they use blasters, not lasers, so really the superheated gases that they are using should go straight through energy shielding anyway, but they don't, but whatever. Energy shields will stop blasters. In any case, the distinction between the types of shielding comes up a couple notable times in the movies. The clearest example was in the battle for Naboo in Phantom Menace, where the shields protecting the Gungan army could withstand sustained bombardment from the Trade Federation tanks, but the droids could simply walk right through them. Another example was in A New Hope during the briefing prior to the Death Star attack, when General Dodonna cautioned everyone that the thermal exhaust port that they were going for was ray shielded, so they'd have to use torpedoes.
The shaft is ray shielded, so you'll have to use proton torpedoes.
So contrary to popular belief, the port was not, in fact, totally undefended. They just couldn't use shields that would stop matter to protect the port since it's an exhaust port and the exhaust needs to be able to get out. All Imperial Star Destroyers utilize both kinds of shielding, though again, how powerful those shields actually are is really badly explained. They are also heavily armored, but again, badly explained, beyond the fact that giant asteroids are apparently still able to cause significant damage. Notably, standard TIE fighters are completely unshielded and are totally dependent on their armor for protection. This armor seems to be effective against small arms fire, but little else, and the pilots are expected to survive battles by just being quick and avoiding enemy fire altogether. There are more advanced TIE models that incorporate shielding as well, but the ones you see all the time have none. On to ground forces. The Federation defenses are pretty easily defined in terms of ground defenses. They don't have any. None that would apply to this conflict anyway. I'm not going to source video games for either side, so the fact that you get personal shielding in Star Trek Online, I'm not considering canon. During the Dominion War, as shown in Deep Space Nine, multiple ground engagements occur, and in none of them were Federation personnel protected by anything more than their uniforms. That said, there are absolutely area shields that you can use, but they don't really have armored or shielded vehicles, and while there are a couple instances of personal shielding and armor being used in any of the series, none of them are by Federation personnel. Sometimes you'll encounter an alien race that can withstand phaser fire from personnel, but none of those people are Federation. That's the sticking point here. The main ground-based defensive measures that get used with any regularity are transport scramblers, which, since transporters don't exist in Star Wars, is pointless in this comparison, so I won't be including them in the comparison. The Empire, on the other hand, outfits all of its stormtroopers with armor that doesn't provide much protection to anyone, but at least incorporates some communication equipment. According to supplementary information about Star Wars, there's a lot more that the armor can do, but going from the movies, the armor did little more than impede the wearer's ability to see, at least if Luke in A New Hope is to be believed.
I can't see a thing in this helmet.
Potentially explaining a bit of the poor aim they exhibited throughout the series, and afforded little protection against things like blaster fire and rocks. And arrows. And for anyone who's going to bring it up, yes, I know that in A New Hope the stormtroopers were missing on purpose to let the Millennium Falcon escape and lead Tarkin to the Rebel base, but that doesn't explain why they can't hit anything in the other movies. That said, as mentioned in Part 3, the Empire also utilized what amounts to basically tanks. Typically, the AT-ST and AT-AT walkers that were heavily armored and armed, capable of totally negating attacks from small to medium arms, though sufficient firepower can still bring them down, and they can be knocked over with sufficient ingenuity. In any case, any amount of armor or shielding has got to be better than nothing, right? I mean, at least stormtroopers are being protected from small chunks of flying debris that would injure or incapacitate anyone just wearing a cloth uniform. So, there's the defensive capabilities of both factions, at least as far as I want to cover them. So how will this affect the overall matchup? Well, you'll just have to check out the rest of the series to see what I think about that question, but in the meantime, what do you think about all this? Did I skip over something I shouldn't have? Are my numbers and conclusions totally wrong? Please comment below, and until next time, live long and prosper, and may the Force be with you.